Disenchanted, Poems by Rowan Knight. Written by Rowan Knight, and read for you by Bianca Gold. Introduction. This book presents a collection of poems inspired on alchemy, love and ancient philosophies, while portraying a critical attitude towards common social values and their true meaning inside the cycles of an existence filled with turmoil. In doing so, the author seeks to explain where chaos and balance, as well as order, find themselves. Because, according to him, it is in the combination of observations and emotions that a divine attribute is gained by the seeker of such qualities. From this perspective onward, more is added, for there is a paradox continually being portrayed between the positive and the negative, common in each one of us, with its relations between happiness and despair, but also truth and delusion, as well as disenchantment and fantasy. Through this approach, an awakening of emotions pointing at the different stages of consciousness is proposed, and this while stripping the reader from guilt and prejudice, but foremost, naivety. Poem 1, The Death of a Rose. I found a rose of a bright red, and one day, far from expected, the rose became dark as lead. Upon a closer contemplation, foretelling the death of my dear rose, I dropped a tear in the night, but the rose remained unmoved, and, within my sight, unchanged. And yet, inside of me, I felt scared, and also confused, for I could not understand why this rose of mine had succumbed to such ungrateful descent. In this overwhelming darkness, I felt alone and deprived, for it was permeated with an unbearable void, which could only be filled, whenever more tears dropped, for what had finished, while awakening in me something deeper, a more profound meaning, and my heart was beating faster, as I was realizing what couldn't be avoided. I was being spiritually pressed towards the chaos of my soul, filled with emotional turmoil. Now into waterfalls my tears had turned, while more within me was unfold, brought forth by what had been suppressed. And in front of the rose I shouted due to the heat of what within me battled, and down I went, deeper into my pain, the entirety of which I struggled in vain. I finally died a spiritual death, and accepted to confront my fate, while surrendering to this state. And this is when my rose died, and the petals fell on the ground, while its roots begun to rotten, for its purpose had been fulfilled, never to be forgotten. The life of this rose in me perpetuated, and in doing so was immortalized, for it never truly vanished. And then I understood why my rose was never afraid, for it was through me that it reflected that which within me was created, illusions making me deluded, and in such lie keeping me fooled, while from the truth detached and from my true self ignored. The peaceful death of my rose made my entire inside revealed, for within this death I awakened to the love for a life once sacrificed, and which should always be remembered, because the love which I ended was the same love once envisioned. Both conditions within me emerged. Poem 2, Just Being. Someone was just being, and in my love for this person, I trusted the feeling, neglected any needing, and overlooked any giving, assuming that love was what I was seeing, or thinking and doing. In this naiveness, I wasn't manifesting, for I trusted that love was merely a feeling. But that person was truly loving and took such love from me away, for I couldn't change my being, and this to my dismay. And now I understand that someone has loved me, while seeing nothing, not even at the end, which ended a future I couldn't foresee while in another perception immersed, despite the emotions in me stimulated. That one who could only be, was, in actuality, me. Poem 3, What Ends. What ends awakens the spirit, and makes you reveal your heart, while forcing from a state to depart. Such duality that is experienced, deceives the eyes, towards what never existed, or was transformed, but merely reflected, and for a goal changed. And in doing so, you went from darkness to light, while burning from the inside, to reveal what you tried to hide, just to avoid such inner fight. For such is the cycle, behind any miracle, depicted in any oracle, from nothing to nothing we go, creating meanings which are never our own, so that others may also participate in this theater of egos, deceived through what is known, and forcing everyone to cooperate, despite any will thought to be owned. Poem 4, The Monk's Dichotomy. I woke up as a monk in a monastery and for the first time realized what is to be spiritually guided, and truly believed it was something to be sought outside. And so, I went out of the monastery, to then conclude it should be accepted from the inside. And I was stunned, for I didn't understand God's purpose. Therefore, seeking His cause, I decided to become as a god, by becoming more than I am, I refused to live under the sun, and begun to live at night as any owl does. But if under the sun I had no silence, at night, I surely had no audience. And this was the moment I realized, that if under the sun and outside the monastery, I could share what I learned, it was only under the moon and inside the monastery, that I could such knowledge comprehend. I then contemplated the concept of my spirituality and the need to connect this duality, and in this contemplation I found myself before what I desired, at the same time that someone knocked, and at the door many people I received.
Poem 5, The Monk and the Villagers.
Inspired by God, a monk headed to a village, seeking to share his glory, and there he offered roses, but was refused with rage, for the villagers wanted animals before he could read a single page. On the second day he returned with a basket filled with fruits, but they still refused, and asked for the meat of animals.
On the third day he arrived with a basket of vegetables, but they continued to refuse and asking for animals to eat.
On the fourth day, an animal he slaughtered while asking God for forgiveness, and offered the meat to the villagers, who were not impressed by his agreeableness. They now, the purest water demanded, and on the fifth day he took the purest he could find, and offered it while asking them to share.
But they drank everything, and now asked for wine.
He didn't have any wine, so took it from the monastery, and was never allowed to return, not until he regained a sense of respect and morality for what his brothers own.
The villagers were finally happy, and as one of them he was accepted. And he was happy too, and allowed himself to be accepted.
But when time came to speak of God he realized that he wasn't blessed, for his mind now women desired, his heart for wilderness craved, and his mouth for wine shouted. He laughed and such pleasures enjoyed, until a sense of spirituality was needed, but from that void madness he got instead. Feeling now tormented, impulsively one of the swords he grabbed, and enjoyed murder, for he found the need to slaughter. Amidst an horrifying and bloody massacre within him a flame was ignited. And when he was covered in the red of the blood of the ones that he barbarically killed, in the night he had silenced after a chaos so fantastically produced, he found the meaning of what he was seeking. And then he laughed again, like a beast owning the night, for in that darkness he had found the light.
Poem 6, The Unseen Gift.
I was walking one day when I stood upon a gift, a collection of flowers, so beautiful and distinct, strange and unique, worthy in their combination, and of different colors. And so, I took them in my hands, eager to offer them to others, and in doing so, make more friends. Every time I returned home, a little girl was standing there, as if knowing I was coming.
And she was rejoicing, for a gift she could only be smelling. For she was blind despite having beautiful dark eyes and a soul that was whispering for compassion that I couldn't be refusing.
To her I offered my first flower, and the same I kept doing, day after day, for she was always waiting, and always in the same way. This little child of golden hair, soft hands and glowing skin, remained a joy to my eyes, and so much so, that the flowers meant nothing when compared to the smile I was earning. To her all these flowers and much more was meant, for she had a smile capable of making me forget everything that in this world I resent. Poem 7, 22 Flowers. I had 22 flowers on top of my bed, and every single one was very beautiful in a very unique way. They delighted me in a variety of forms, for their perfume filled me with different sensations, and the shape inspired me to different thoughts, keeping me motivated throughout my days, and although such connection was unspoken, the trust I had in them was misled, as if for me they had kept an omen that was waiting further ahead.
I eventually cut myself on those flowers,
and while suffering, I shockingly bled, but my trauma was deeper than those scars and to question myself that experience had led. I then placed them in a jar, and watched them by afar. I noticed the similarities making me love them as they are, for those similarities had meanings, like poetry unveiling my soul's secrets.
And from within the silence emerged words, as if they were speaking to me in whispers.
They said they weren't meant to be mine but merely show me a path to my own soul, and teach me that through agony I could shine. They also told me to always remember, that when the suffering goes deeper, the good memories become sweeter, and can only be replaced by a better flower, more loving than those which made me surrender to illusions that made me act like nothing more than a pretender. And so, by saying goodbye to the flowers, I was saying hello to myself, and what I truly wished to attract, for they gave me scars, but released me from fantasy's claws. I saw then, and while still bleeding, what I should be seeking, and in a tribute to their memory, I cleansed myself with their agony, while watching them burn in a fire, unveiling within me a deeper desire, meant to make me fulfill my passion for aesthetics, in a spiritual immortality through what is pleasant, when love is felt like an eternal present. Indeed, they gave me scars after embracing me with spells, but also did so with my delusions, which were now being abandoned, with such flowers that the flames consumed.